Hi everyone. Our video today is going to be all about my car and why I chose it as a driving school car, and the things that are good and the things that are bad. And the reason for this is, as you may have seen on the post that I put on the other day, I've actually ordered a new car and that's going to be coming in the new year. So we're going to have a good look at the reasons behind why I chose this one in the first place. Sake, if we ever get out. How many more cars? Yay. So a driving school car has got a specific use and it needs to fit the task. Now, my life as a driving instructor is probably a little different than the majority of driving instructors. The majority of driving instructors are going to mainly be teaching learner drivers, but a big portion of what I do is spent teaching driving instructors. So there's a few different little things that actually came into the equation when I was choosing this car, and it's a lot of the time because of the varied work that I do. Now, I chose this particular car for a number of reasons, to be honest. I really like the way BMWs drive. I've had a couple in the past. If I was honest, I remember the first one that I had actually caught fire while I was driving it many years ago, before I was a driving instructor. And then I had another one that had a lot of engine problems, so that wasn't very good luck. And then I had one as a driving school car as an automatic a number of years ago, and I didn't have very much luck with that, to be honest. The turbo went while it was driving, and it spewed all the turbo blades into the engine and caused horrific damage. I was just a little bit lucky that it was still under warranty, because I think the bill from BMW to put it right was about £10,500. So I've never really had the best of luck. But honestly, I was due to change my car a couple of years back, and I was just looking around for something that suited. If I was honest, I'd always been put off the BMWs with the experience that I'd had before with them. So I've had an Audi A3, which was a brilliant car, no issues with it whatsoever. And when it came to change that, I was looking at a few things. I was looking at a Mercedes A-Class, and if I was honest, I was ready to purchase one of them. But I had a couple of issues with the Mercedes dealer in Liverpool, literally because they didn't do exactly as I asked, and what I'd asked them to do regarding a quote for a car. And that incompetence, to be fair, I didn't fancy dealing with them for a number of years. It may have just been the salesperson that I actually dealt with. So in the end, I actually went for a 1 Series, and went for a 1 Series for a number of reasons. If you were to run a BMW or a premium brand car as a driving school and do many miles in it, for example, a driving instructor would probably do, they're working full time, 25 to 35,000 miles a year. The premium brands then become an expensive option, and if I was honest, most of the time that wouldn't be the case. It wouldn't be viable for most people. I know it can be, but to be honest, it is a business. Your primary aim is to maybe maximise your earnings, and you can't spend it all on a car. But this is really one of the first reasons why I bought a BMW. It's that brand. It's sort of like why we're all suckered into buying the latest iPhone or the latest Samsung phone. because it's that brand image, and people are sort of obsessed with it nowadays, and no bones about it. Me driving a BMW is good sort of like advertising for the company, so that's one of the reasons why I chose to actually go with a BMW. But running one for the amount of miles that driving instructors do can sometimes be uneconomic, but because I only do approximately 10,000 miles a year, for me it wasn't too bad. I always think of cars of not how much they cost, but how much they're going to lose you, or depreciation in other words. That's really all effectively you're paying for. So there was an economic reason. I found with the mileage that I was doing, the Volkswagen Golf was a similar sort of price to this 1 Series. A Ford Focus, I actually found, believe it or not, was a little more expensive. So for me, it was a no-brainer to really have somewhere nicer to be, something maybe a little bit higher quality, because economically it made no difference. They were exactly the same, or sometimes even the BMW was a little bit better viable option. So going back to me saying about I like the drive of the BMWs, I do. My missus has still got her M3, and I've always liked the balance of the BMWs and how they feel on the road. And because I do spend a fair bit of time driving, that was another factor in me choosing BMW. Some people say about the BMWs particularly being rear wheel drive, and is that a problem? Well, honestly, I've not found it a problem whatsoever. If you're driving a car just on the road and you're sticking to speed limits and you're doing the correct thing, honestly, you cannot tell the difference. Are they a little bit more awkward in icy conditions and snowy conditions? Yes, they are. However, I've not had a massive issue with it. If you again know how to drive in the ice and snow, even driving a rear wheel drive BMW isn't a massive issue. It's not a big deal. With the weather that we get in the UK, it's a little bit different story if you're taking a car around a track. The handling of the rear wheel drive compared to front wheel drive does make a difference, but for me, nothing. It wasn't a consideration, and it wouldn't be with my next car. I've just talked a little bit about the economics behind purchasing the car, and the other thing that you've got to take into account are the other costs to owning the car, the things like maintenance, and this is a little grumble that I've had from this BMW 1 Series, that it's got maybe 20,000 miles service intervals, and you can see that on the display when you start it up. It shows you how many miles there are to service. Just for example, I had this serviced only a couple of weeks ago at the start of December, and it came back from the service, and it said on the dashboard 19,000 miles until the next service. Great, okay, so that should in theory last me getting on for a couple of years. However, this car chews through its service schedule unbelievably. I think the last service that I had before this one, it was only about 7,000 miles previous. So this car does 7,000 miles where it should do 19 before it comes up that it needs a service. And I understand that that's maybe the type of driving that it does, but honestly, it does get a good run. I teach driving instructors, and we do a lot of motorway and out of town stuff, so it's not just town stuff that this car does. It is open road stuff as well, but that is a disappointment for me with this 1 Series, that the service schedules don't last as long as they should. But the service costs, if I was honest, have been pretty reasonable. I bought a service pack when I first got the car, which was a couple of services, and I think it was £299 for the next 2 services. Great, £150 each. That's from a BMW dealer. And then the one that I just had recently, I think it was £228 for the service. So honestly, the main dealer, I don't know whether that is the regular servicing price for a 1 Series. I don't know, because I take my missus's car there as well. I don't know whether my local dealership, Williams BMW in Liverpool, do give me some decent rates because I go there all the time. I don't know. If you've got a BMW and you take it to BMW service centre, let me know the price and cost of your service in the comments so people can do some comparisons. So the actual running of it, cost wise, isn't too bad. Insurance wise, it's a little more expensive than we've got a Mercedes A-Class that we run as an automatic vehicle. It's a little more expensive than that. Insurance cost for driving instructors isn't too bad, to be honest, but it's probably 25% more expensive than the Mercedes, so insurance costs are a little high. Other things, what else has gone wrong with this car? Actually, nothing. I haven't even had any tyres on it, and it's done 20,000 miles in 2 years since I've had it. And the last service that I've just talked about at the start of December, I think the fronts were on 5mm, the tyres, and the backs were on 4mm. Now, again, that could be down to the way I drive it. If you're driving like an idiot, you're going to chew through your tyres much quicker than that. So, cost-wise, on this car, on this 1 Series, I can't really complain. It's actually been really good. So, what do they like to live with on a daily basis? Honestly, very good. Like I said, I've had nothing go wrong with it in the time that I've had it. It's a comfortable place to be. Apart from the ride on BMWs, I still think they are a sporty ride, but honestly, with the roads in Liverpool, I'm not sure that was the best choice, but it was a compromise that I was willing to make. The run flat tyres that are on BMWs, they're not very forgiving. They've got harder sidewalls, and what actually that equates to when you're driving on the road is that you feel every bump and every pothole. However, on a handling basis, the actual setup of the BMWs cannot be faulted. But again, although I can be a spirited driver on occasions, I'm sticking to limits. That's just how I roll, and that's what I'll always do. But I do enjoy taking it out on the open road and having some fun as much as we can. So the ride isn't something that I was particularly happy with throughout the couple of years of this car. So hopefully my new car is going to be a little bit more compliant and comfortable on a daily basis, but not losing too much of that enjoyment. So what things didn't I like about this car? If I was honest, there isn't much. It's been brilliant, it's been excellent. The seats, nice and comfortable. They move. The seat position in this car is excellent. You can move the seat up and down, in and out. It pivots, honestly, it's excellent. The seat position from BMWs for me is superb. Is it any different than any other car that I've had? Probably yes. The adjustment, particularly on the seat, hasn't had any issues fitting in any of my pupils. And I had a guy earlier on in the year who was 6'7", no problem. And then there was a couple of people who have been close to 5 foot. One student of mine at the moment, he's probably a little under 5 foot, so they've all had no issues fitting in this car. So that's been all okay. Just going on seating position, I do feel as though in this 1 Series you do sit quite down low. The visibility is pretty good, but you do feel sort of like sat in the car a little bit, and that does occasionally cause people problems when they're steering around corners, because these pillars are quite high, all the sills are quite high, and that can cause people issues steering. Has that been an issue with maybe Erin on her lessons? If you've seen my series with Erin, possibly, could very well be. If we go back to Erin's lessons as well, you may have seen at the start, the height adjust was a bit of an awkward thing, and honestly it is on these 1 Series BMWs. So that's one thing that I don't like on how you actually adjust the height of the seat. So maybe that would be something that I'll look for in my new car. What else didn't I like? The indicators, to be honest, on this generation BMW are a pain in the backside. Not necessarily for me, I don't mind them, but the pupils don't seem to get them very well and don't seem to work with them very well. Honestly, if you've ever driven one, they're a push and they spring back into their original position. Like I said, for experienced drivers it's not an issue, but to be honest, because learner drivers are quite heavy-handed, they can be a little issue. So that would be nice if my new vehicle had just the normal regular indicators where you click them up and they stay up, and then you can see and feel and hear when they click back down into that off position. So that would be pretty good. What else is there about this car? Tell you what, the seats, although they're comfortable, this is going to be absolutely vile for some people, but the seats, because they're material, and Alcantara in particular, collect smells quite a bit. I've recently taught my youngest lad to drive. You probably saw a few of the videos that my little fella was actually featured in. However, I was out going somewhere and I made my youngest lad drive. My missus was in the back, and she actually told him that he probably needed to get a shower when he got home, which was a bit harsh. But I realised it wasn't actually him. It was the seat. The seat smelled, and material seats will collect the smells from people who sit in it. Now, I'm saying it wasn't me. Hopefully it wasn't, but on occasions you do have a few pupils who can be a little bit smelly sometimes. They get nervous, they get hot, they get sweaty. So would I go for something next time with material seats? No, I don't think I would. And I remember years ago having the same problem in a Ford Focus that I had, and I actually had the old beaded seat covers over the seats to stop this problem, but the examiners and the DVSA decided that we weren't allowed them on test because they could move, so we had to get rid of them. But a leather seat would, for me, be a good thing because of the hygiene side, and you can wipe them down. What about the tech in this car? Well, it's got parking sensors front and back, and although they're not massively important, they are useful. I think the modern tech in the car, the cars that come out nowadays, is really useful. The integration of your phone with the car to allow you to see messages or listen to messages or whatever, or take a call without being distracted is, I wouldn't say massively important for me, because I honestly don't use my phone much. I tend to wait till I'm parked in at the side of the road, or I've finished a lesson before I'll address anything. But integration of technology into a vehicle can be important. It actually helps with safety as well, because you don't have to be looking at your phone to maybe change songs if you're listening to some playlist or anything. You can do that from your steering wheel. I know where the buttons are at a glance. So I wouldn't want to lose any of that tech. Anything else tech-wise would maybe a parking system help me? No, not in the slightest. And would it help a pupil? Well, honestly, it would. Any other tech, any other aid that comes with the new modern cars, excuse me, is a good thing. Not because pupils rely on it, but because I can then show them how it works. So maybe a car that parallel parks itself, maybe a car with a reversing camera, which I've had before, which this one lacks, could be something that would be useful. Would be something that I'd stand my ground with and have to have. No, not necessarily. But there are other things like a head-up display, which I've showed on my Mrs. M3. I think that's a great little bit of kit and a great bit of tech, because people spend all of their time looking at the speedo rather than listening to manage their speed. But if you've got the speedo out in front of you on the windscreen, that's an amazing bit of kit. But again, would I have to have that in the car? No, I've never had one with a head-up display. Is there anything else that you would think that would be really, really important if I was choosing a new car? If you do, if you come up with anything, let me know in the comments. Is the power of a car important for my job? A little, to be honest, because we do a little bit more motorway stuff and out of town stuff. Honestly, I don't think that a car with a 1 litre normal engine, normally aspirated engine, would suit me. I'm a big guy as well, probably a little bit too big at the moment, could do with losing a bit. But anyway, the power of a car is something that I do use. I'm a firm believer of that little bit of extra power that you've got can get you out of problems. And sometimes when you're in a car that's less powerful, you haven't got that flexibility. All you can do really is slow down, which sometimes that can keep you in danger. So a little bit of extra power, would I need it? No, this car's got on for 150 brake horsepower. It's a 2 litre diesel. I'd be more than happy with something of the same performance. So performance wise, it's not really an issue. But again, I did say a little bit earlier on that I do like to drive. I can be quite spirited in my driving if I'm out on the correct roads. So if I had a little bit more power, would that make a big difference? Not really a big difference, but it might be something that I consider. Don't forget as well, if I want to go and have some fun, I've got that absolute luxury of having a M3 comp sat on the drive, so I know I'm very fortunate in that regard. So it's not something that would be high on my list. What about the look of the car? I touched on earlier on that the brand might be a little bit of a pull for people, and I also think that the look of a car can also do the same thing. My car is quite distinctive, to be honest, with the black wheels and the little bits and bobs and the black grille. It's not a shadow line, it's just a 118D M Sport. But the look of a car can again make you stand out, but also being distinctive can also sometimes cause you problems. Honestly, I've had certain things targeted at me literally because of the stuff that I put on YouTube, because my car, especially with its reg, I've had people have a pop about certain things. Sorry, just saying hello to an old mate of mine who just drove past, that's all. But yeah, it can be a little issue if people are being a bit nasty sometimes, but it's not a big thing. I've got thick skin, I can deal with anything that's thrown at me. if I'm going to stick stuff out on YouTube, I've also got to be hard-skinned or tough-skinned enough to cope with the criticism that comes back, and I am. So that's not a big deal whatsoever. So the look of a car, the 1 Series for me, it was okay. Certain aspects to it might not have been exactly what I would have chosen, but honestly it's done a job, and the looks of the car, it has to be okay, but it's not something that I would sort of like prioritise as the main thing. However, the new car that I have chosen might very well be a little bit different than the stereotypical driving school car. Now we're getting to the end of this, but there is something that I'd like to also mention about this particular car that I didn't like, and it's the space in the back seats. It's honestly rubbish. Now, do I spend a lot of time in the back seats? No, I don't. However, when a pupil is on test, they get the choice whether the instructor or myself is fine to sit in and listen to the debrief at the end of the test. And honestly, there's very little space in the back of my car. If my seat is in my seating position, I would struggle sitting behind myself. So if I was to ever sit in the back of tests, and I've done it a few occasions, it's really uncomfortable, all right, for a guy of my size. So a little bit more room would be nice. Funnily enough, the Mercedes A-Class that we've got as the automatic, although it's a similar sort of floor plan with the car, it seems to have a lot more interior space. So the ergonomics of the rear seats in this car isn't the best. Another thing that I do quite often is I allow instructors who I'm training to sit in the back of my car and watch me teach. I think it's a very useful training aid, but honestly they may struggle as well, so a little bit more room might very well be useful. Boot size, it's irrelevant. I don't carry very much in the car nowadays, to be honest, so the space in the boot doesn't really matter, so that's not something that I would actually bother too much about. Is there anything else that you think that you would include within your choice for a car? Mention the main things, really. Economics and running costs for me, that's the primary thing that you should be really looking at. Don't ever buy a car that's beyond your means. I see people sometimes having a car that's more expensive than the house. Honestly, I've never got that. Cars do nothing but lose you money, to be honest. So if you can minimise your money loss, that should really be high on your list. What about the eco side of things? For me, it is important. I think that's why it's a good thing that we're all eventually going to go electric. And I'll let people into a little, I won't say it's a secret, but I just didn't tell anyone, but I did have a deposit down on a Model 3 Tesla that I was going to use for these purposes. Would have been an automatic, obviously, and that may have compromised the work that I do. I could still teach instructors in that. However, I think it's pretty important if you're teaching driving instructors to give them all the skills with the manual box. So it was something that I was humming and ahhing over. But when the Tesla Model 3 came out with the electricity benefits and the eco sort of like benefits of it, I was quite impressed with the package. So I left a deposit, left £1,000 deposit. That was a good couple of years ago. And when they were released, not to the public, but just in the press, they said they were going to be about £25,000, which is probably at the highest limit of a really realistic driving school car. So I was tempted, so I left my deposit. But when they actually came out They're pushing in the UK £38,000, so that was way too much. So would an electric car be something that I would consider? Absolutely, yeah. I've had a couple of hybrids. I've had a couple of Toyota hybrids in the past, and they've been brilliant cars, honestly. Reliability again was top notch. Running costs were very, very low. Very reliable motors. So yes, the eco side of things would mean a lot if I could be eco-friendly as much as I possibly can as well. So that could be something that you stick into your choice. But electric, it is the future. We're all going down that route. I just wonder how long it will be until I could forego that manual gearbox. Honestly, this next vehicle that I've chosen, it is a manual, but will it be the last manual I have? Possibly. Now, I hope that's been interesting. I know I've just really talked about me and myself, and I don't like doing that really. However, hopefully the things that I've put out today, if you're buying a car, may be the things that could be important to you. But like I've said a little bit earlier, are there any other things that you think of? If there is, let us know in the comments, because honestly the inspiration and the knowledge that I gain from all my subs and viewers is amazing. So thank you as always for watching. Have a cracking Christmas, what's left of it, and I hope to see you all soon.